we have a small group here this evening, and we'll go ahead and get started. But first, I guess we can do a quick round of introductions for those of us who aren't familiar with everyone on the Zoom. I'm Gwen Miller. I'm the Land Use Director and Town Planner in Lenox, and I have been leading this master plan effort in the community. And I have been joined by a wonderful steering committee of local volunteers. And I will have Olga Weiss introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Olga Weiss, and I'm the chairperson of the Lenox Historical Commission. And that sort of earned me a place on this committee. So as part of the master plan, we're very interested in the way we deal with our historical resources, and any input that we get from outside of the work that we have done will be most appreciated.
I'll pass it on to Alan.
I'm Alan Burrows. I'm the Artistic Director at Shakespeare and Company.
And Adam.
I'm Adam Davis. I'm the Managing Director at Shakespeare and Company.
Kate.
Kate McNulty-Vaughn. I'm on the Planning Board and Affordable Housing Committee. And since the Planning Board is interested in every aspect of what's happening in Lenox, here we are.
And Rob. Okay, and Rob Murray is here too. He has been on the steering committee and he is the president of the Lenox Chamber. And I believe is also a local landlord.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we've also had members of the select board on the steering committee, Mary Beth Mitz, Suki Werman from the environmental committee, and Pam Kieber also from the planning board, and two high school students who have since graduated, Isabella Williams and Julie Monteleone, who were with the group for a while, but have gone on to college. So yay for them. And with that, we do have a brief presentation. Oh, and I also can't forget to introduce our wonderful consultants. We have been working with the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission with Tom Matuzko, their executive director, and Phil Arnold, a senior planner. So thank you, everybody. And we'll just get going with our slideshow. So this is the first of several master plan meetings we'll be having, and it is for our master plan. And we've done our welcome and introductions already. And I also just want to point out, if you haven't had the opportunity to look at our draft master plan, it's available on our website, townoflenox.com. If you go to the land use department page, it's there. It's a big, long document. So you can choose to look at the whole thing, or you can look at the specific chapters that may interest you. And I'll be providing an overview of each chapter this evening. So tonight we're going to walk through what is a master plan and why does a community go to the effort of having one? Our planning process to date and going forward, an overview of this master plan, our kind of key findings from the plan, the vision for the overall plan in each chapter, and kind of a quick summary of the goals, objectives, and actions. So this is the first, like I said, of several meetings, and tonight's really going to be kind of an airplane level view of everything the steering committee has looked at over the past few years. And then later this month and into March, we'll be having more detailed, in-depth breakout meetings where we'll really encourage participation from the public, we'll have time for questions and comments tonight as well. But these breakout sessions will be topical. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So what is a master plan? It's a little bit different than a strategic plan or say a neighborhood plan, very different than a site plan. A master plan is intended to guide the physical growth and development of a community. It looks at where the community is today and kind of identifies the opportunities and challenges that are facing the community. And with a clear vision, it guides the community into the future. So you're making decisions and taking actions and creating policies that help you achieve your vision and goals. So a master plan is a very useful tool in guiding and supporting local decision making. It can help support funding requests and decisions. It can build or identify consensus. It shows where, what, and how a community wants to look in the future. And in Massachusetts, it's guided by Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81D, which specifically lays out what you're supposed to have in every master plan and kind of how it should be outlined and like what content you should have in it. Unlike other states, though, a master plan isn't necessarily binding. In some states are plan states. If you have a master plan, like your zoning code and actions the municipality or county take, they need to mirror your master plan. Massachusetts is not like that. So it's more of a guiding document, but we do have a helpful kind of framework for what it should look like and have in it. So with our master plan, with this process to date, town meeting funded the endeavor. They appropriated $50,000 from the general fund to help the planning board and land use department seek out consultants to develop the plan. And so it really kicked off in January 2019. So we're 2 years into it. And so between January and June of 2019, the steering committee and staff kind of developed lists of stakeholders that they wanted to talk to identify kind of the key opportunities and challenges in Lenox and to think about what actions or what policies, what could the town really do to achieve certain goals, to solve certain problems, to really leverage the unique opportunities in Lenox. And so from July 2019 to December 2019, the consultant prepared draft chapters from standardized data, other planning documents that the town has done, speaking with these core assessment teams and other stakeholders. And then these drafts went back to the steering committee for review. And so really from about February of last year to present, the steering committee has been meeting, reviewing, and providing input on these chapters, and really paying close attention to the goals and actions that the master plan recommends the town pursue. We did take a hiatus with the pandemic, and we certainly had hoped for these meetings to all be in person. So we're adapting to the pandemic like everyone has. And so this is our first meeting. So between now and May, we're really seeking public input. A, we don't want the plan to be created in a vacuum. And B, the steering committee and core assessment teams identified kind of some policy questions that are really best answered by a broader collection of residents and stakeholders than just the members on the committee and town staff. And the goal is to have this final plan brought to both the planning board, who is kind of the legal guardian of the master plan, and the Board of Selectmen for adoption by this June. And hopefully we'll have a brief, very summary presentation at a our annual town meeting, which happens in May. So if you've seen it on the website, the master plan outline is pretty straightforward. It starts with kind of a snapshot in time of Lenox today, demographics, and then we have the required chapters: land use, economic development, open space and recreation, housing, historical and cultural resources, services and facilities, transportation and circulation, and implementation. And the way each chapter is broken down is there's kind of an overview of this topic area in Lenox in 2021, a vision statement, priority topics, priority goals, a little more context and background, and then a list of goals, objectives, and actions that are numbered. And the way this will all work is as we get more input from the public, we'll prioritize the goals and objectives and actions, and we'll put a timeline to those and kind of identify partners and stakeholders and funding sources to create an implementation table that will really help guide how the town, through collaboration and on its own, can kind of get all of these things done. I think a common critique you'll hear of local plans is that they sit on a shelf. And the intent of this master plan is really not to sit on the shelf. The town does have a 1999 master plan and a 1968 master plan. And if you look at both of those, a lot has been accomplished from those. And you'll see on the land use webpage, Lenox has done a lot of different plans over the years, and it's really worked hard to implement the actions of them. So they don't really sit on shelves in Lenox. So I just wanted to give everyone a brief snapshot in time, kind of Lenox today, and look back also at the 1999 plan. So everyone here knows that Lenox has a fairly stable population of approximately 5,000 year-round residents. It nearly doubles in our peak season. Lenox is known for its high quality municipal services. 5,000 people is not a very large town. It's not the largest community in Berkshire County, but we have a really wide array of very high quality municipal services: the schools, Department of Public Works, the library, the community center. It has very positive services. And it's known for its abundant cultural, natural, and recreational resources. And over time, Lenox has really built solid, stable financial footing. So it doesn't find itself in the same kind of financial challenge that other communities sometimes find themselves, where so Lenox is able to maintain a very reasonable tax rate, both for residential properties and commercial properties. And we'll get into why it can do that. But that's good for residents, and it's good for prospective businesses and people who might want to live here one day. So in 1999, Lenox had a stable aging population with a death rate higher than birth rate. The master plan talked about a seasonal influx of residents and visitors. The population was projected to grow slowly or remain the same. And looking at this plan, it noted that the peak population was above 6,000, but that was in 1980. And Lenox back then was not very diverse in terms of race or ethnicity. And so looking at 2021, not a lot has changed. Our population is still very stable. Our death rate is still higher than the birth rate. We have a bit of a better idea of how much the population increases in peak season using our, I think, water and sewer data, we estimated an increase of about 54% of the year-round population. The UMass Donahue Institute projects a decline of population by 10%. We're still not very diverse in terms of race or ethnicity, though there's been a slight increase. It could be attributable just to the sheer number of how the population has grown a little bit. Economic sectors are largely the same as they were back in 1999. So if you look at the list of the regional large employers, some of those like KB Toys, some of the paper mills, those are no longer here. The plan in 1999 also talked about the same housing challenges that the community looks at today. The aged municipal facilities that plan describes, they're still here and they're almost 30 years older now. And the plan also talks about specific neighborhoods and their goals, and those have really not changed since the 2000 plan. So in 1999, the master plan vision stated, the goal of that master plan was to guide the development, enhancement, and conservation of the town to create a more diverse yet tightly woven community that pridefully sustains its rich cultural base and excellent amenities as it meets the economic and social needs of present and future residents. So the vision for where did I go? The vision for today's master plan talks about Town of Lenox seeks to preserve its blend of rural character and urban amenities while becoming a more diverse population that is inclusive of first homeowners, younger people, and families. And really the goal of this plan is to say, if this is your vision, how do you leverage it with existing opportunities? And what are the challenges that make this more difficult for the town to achieve? So we'll dive right in to the first chapter of the plan, which is land use. And so when we talk about land use kind of in the planning world, we're talking about how is land in your community used and kind of what regulates that use. So in Lenox, the vision for land use is, well, let's talk first about key findings. I'm sorry. I'm just going to forward us onto this slide. So over time, land use in Lenox has not changed dramatically. About 25% of Lenox remains undeveloped forested landscape. You know, we have a lot of protected open space, kind of the natural topography of the community has really restrained development. And so you really see, this is the current land use pattern. We have the village center, the Route 7, Route 20 corridor, the traditional kind of old mill and village center in Lennoxdale. And you have little neighborhoods that sprung up around the old estates and along East Street. And kind of in North Lenox, there was more like post-war, kind of that suburban style development. And so this has also really been guided by the zoning over time. If you look at our very old zoning maps, we have one that goes back as far as 1940. The zoning, the kind of broader zoning scheme in Lenox has not changed dramatically. So it's really retained kind of commercial land use and business to the village centers, to Route 7, and really tried to maintain the rural and residential character of the rest of the community. And so as part of the land use chapter, we identified kind of the future land use map of Lenox, which is to my right. And it doesn't really change very much from the current land use pattern. And the way this was developed was the Berkshires have their own master plan, a regional sustainability plan that developed a framework for looking at developable land, existing land use patterns, what's protected, and kind of helping communities figure out where they want to target redevelopment, what they want to protect. And so you can see that in the future land use plan here. You'll see kind of our neighborhoods around the village centers. That's really where you would want to promote kind of new development or redevelopment in the same scale and manner of design that's already there. Thinking in the purple area about promoting new businesses or expanding existing ones. That's really kind of our industrial corridor and neighborhood. While you're also balancing kind of a really compact residential neighborhood there. And these yellow areas are special use districts. The green, the pale green, is really where the town wants to keep kind of prioritizing natural resources, but recognizing people also want to live in those neighborhoods. So just making sure that the residential development taking place is sensitive to natural resources. The dark green are important natural resource areas. Yeah, so thinking about that. So the land use vision, land use in Lenox is sustainable, contributing to the attractiveness of the community as a place to live and visit for people of all backgrounds through balanced protection and enhancement of existing assets and the place-based sensitive development of suitable areas. Priority topics include balancing rich natural resources with sensitive development, leveraging historical and cultural resources to meet current and future needs, and designed to welcome. And really to think about those, so Lenox wants to make sure that the beautiful scenery and the important functions that are provided by the natural resources within the community are protected, in that if there is new growth or new development, it's done so away from kind of these special places and features and done very with great sensitivity. And part of what makes Lenox Lenox is its rich history and its rich culture. And so it's making sure those are kind of celebrated and yeah, that our historical resources are protected and kind of promoted through reuse and preservation, and that the cultural resources are able to be flexible and expand as they need to remain successful and vibrant into the long-term future. And when we say designed to welcome, it's looking at kind of the built environment and how we allow or promote new growth and development in the community, but also how are new residents and new businesses, are they welcomed? How do we incentivize, you know, a business relocating to Lenox, or a business expanding in Lenox, or a developer choosing to, choosing to build a new housing development in Lenox? And do we have the right infrastructure to make all of this desirable? Is there universal cell coverage? Is there high-speed internet accessible and affordable to most of the community? Things like that. Is there adequate water and sewer to service the sites the town wants to see redeveloped? Our priority goals, so yeah, protecting, enhancing, and celebrating Lenox's rich abundance of natural, historic, and natural resources, and protecting Lenox's small town way of life while enhancing equity and ensuring resilience to climate change and other physical changes to Lenox landscapes and neighborhoods. I think in the plan chapter, we identified two things in the short-term and long-term future that are likely to really impact future land use in Lenox, and that's climate change and the rest of river effort to remediate the Housatonic River. And really, with climate change, we expect greater, rainier, kind of overall a warmer climate with more dramatic high frequency rain events, which can cause erosion and other problems. And with that warming weather, we can expect, even with like more rain, with the warmer weather, we can expect more drought conditions, and we're more vulnerable to invasive species that can dramatically alter the landscape with their impact to forests. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions. Oh, and then the fourth priority goal is to make sure Lenox is a community of welcome to new residents of all backgrounds. And you're probably thinking, how is this land use related? But a town can be welcoming through land use by the kind of housing it allows and promotes, the kind of new development and physical buildings it allows and encourages, and the kind of infrastructure it requires of new development or redevelopment, and the kind of infrastructure a town funds or builds. Like if they're redoing a road, are you making sure you're putting in sidewalk or a bike lane? Are your facilities handicap accessible, etc.? I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions or comments on the land use chapter.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, Elliot.
At this rate, we'll probably get through the entire report sometime around midnight. And I'm just wondering, we wrote this report, at least we added to it, and we're pretty familiar with what is in it. I'm wondering if we can reduce the amount of time spent going through the report in detail, since we helped write it, and focus more on particular issues that we've got.
Yeah, we certainly can. There's two other people on this meeting who did not help write the planning report. So, and this will be recorded and put up on CTSB as well for people who weren't able to make it. But I can try to speed things up because I don't think anyone wants to be here till midnight.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I'd say kind of the key policy questions that came out of the land use chapter really are, what areas in Lenox is the community comfortable with seeing either new development or redevelopment? And in those specific locations, like what do they want to see happen? What do they want it to look like? This is for either new commercial use, but also residential. Housing is a topic that pops up in a couple chapters. So it's saying, all right, if you want housing, where do you want it in the community and what do you want it to look like? And so a recommendation in the land use chapter is that, you know, housing should be prioritized to kind of areas where you already have high density traditional neighborhoods and where you can infill housing that looks similar to what's already there and where there's municipal water and sewer. Okay, and so economic development is another. Here we are. The vision says Lenox will strengthen its support of tourism and hospitality and seek appropriate opportunities to diversify its economy. So really the key findings in this chapter are that Lenox's economy is like it's not very diverse. It really relies on hospitality and leisure. Those are the largest sectors according to employment numbers. Employment in Lenox is very seasonal. It kind of peaks in the peak tourist season, and it's very low in the other, or not low, it's just kind of level the rest of the year. And we really saw the unemployment numbers really jumped with the pandemic. So that's something we'll be looking at closely in the short term to make sure they recover to the pre-pandemic numbers. And the priority topics, so thinking about tourism in Lenox, it's really the town's, as we say, bread and butter, but can we expand the main tourism season and make sure people are here throughout the year, and particularly in the shoulder seasons, to support the cultural institutions and also the local businesses, trying to diversify the local economy to help make it more pandemic and recession proof in the long term, and help also attract kind of new, younger residents who may have their own businesses or are starting a business and can work remotely or be flexible in that way. And another priority topic identified by the economic development team was the idea of new residents. How can you kind of bring in new families, new households to Lenox who can work in the local economy and bolster it and go to the Lenox schools and really be a part of the community. So thinking about the impacts of the pandemic on economic development, the main priority goal is to support and revive the tourism industry to restore overall economic growth, market Lenox's high quality of life to attract young professionals and families wanting to leave urban areas, and again, diversifying the local economy. If you really want a resilient local economy and kind of a sustainable local economy, it's good to have your eggs in multiple baskets. So I'll just pause here. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Oh, and this slide was meant to be in the land use section, but it's a map showing the different neighborhoods in Lenox. So one thing about this master plan is it goes into each neighborhood in Lenox and talks about kind of the land use goals in that neighborhood. So another key element in a master plan is the open space and recreation chapter. And this really looks at what conservation areas are in a town and what recreational opportunities are in a town. So the steering committee and the core assessment team hope that Lenox will continue to be a proactive steward of its natural landscape and resources, with additional focus on climate change adaptation, and further promote the use of its open space and recreational amenities, especially during the winter months. So kind of a key finding of this chapter is Lenox has almost, I want to say 5,300 acres of protected open space. And the big landowners of this are, so the town owns a substantial amount, the state, Mass Audubon, BNRC, and the local land trust. And then there's privately owned protected lands too. So the priority topic, and this really kind of carries forward from our open space and rec plan, which a town is also required to have. So there's so much awesome open space in Lenox, and there's so much great recreation opportunity, from mountain biking, fishing, ice fishing, canoeing, hiking, walking, all kinds of skiing. It's really remarkable, but a lot of people don't know about it, and so they can't really access it. So it's making sure public access is there to these different properties, and making sure visitors and residents know about these properties. They know how to get there, and they know how to kind of get around them safely and enjoy them. And then protecting natural resources, and that's kind of like from the land use chapter, saying if there's land that's next to existing protected open space that has unique resources or landscape features, that hosts rare species, that offers connectivity to other public lands, that should be a priority for ongoing protection and acquisition as necessary. And so priority goals include promoting year-round outdoor recreational opportunities and really emphasizing activities available during the non-summer seasons, particularly winter, expanding an already strong constituency of open space and recreation advocates through education and collaborative partnerships, connect neighborhoods, open space, and rec areas, protect and augment water resources, and protect native plant and wildlife habitats while controlling invasive species on public and private property. And really the thrust of this section is it really overlaps with economic development because Lenox could be a hub and kind of a hotspot for not just culture and history, but for open space and recreation too. You can already see that with the effort of BNRC's The High Road. And there's just so many opportunities in Lenox to kind of be in nature and recreate, and then also have kind of world-class art and culture that you would normally see in much more urban areas with larger populations. So Lenox can be a hub, kind of an outdoor recreation hub in this sense, and thinking about when we say diversify the local economy, how can we leverage kind of recreation in the outdoors to help with that? So any comments or questions on this section?
No.
Okay, moving right along. So another important component of a master plan is housing. The vision for housing is that Lenox will increase the variety of its housing stock to accommodate the needs of existing residents and provide more housing options to attract new residents. So priority topics include senior housing, rental housing, and access to ownership. Priority goals increase the availability of housing affordable for young first-time homebuyers. And goal 2, increase the supply of mixed income housing options in or near commercial areas and villages to support the local economy and promote the principles of smart growth. So Lenox, kind of key findings of the housing chapter are that Lenox has senior housing, but with kind of the baby boomer generation, it could use more senior housing. Thinking about how can you help current or new residents age in place, stay in their community. They might not necessarily want to go into a retirement facility or community, but they might just need a smaller place to live, one that's more energy efficient, one that's a single floor, or that they can walk to town to get groceries or go to the community center and still see friends. So that was one of the priority topics. Rental housing as well. So one, and this is kind of common to the region, rental housing in the community can be a challenge, and it can be difficult for low to moderate income households, as well as kind of that more middle market, to find quality rental opportunities that make them want to move here and make them able to move here, but also make them want to stay here. So it's thinking about how can you create kind of new rental opportunities that are attractive to both like the baby boomer generation, but also the millennial and kind of younger generations that are close and convenient to amenities, that might be accessible to public transportation, where you can kind of walk out of your rental apartment or studio, but also just go for a hike or a bike ride. And access to ownership too. Lenox is making good progress on its kind of state required percent of units that are deed restricted affordable, but they're all rental opportunities. So how do you help? How can the community help promote ownership, both for people, kind of people looking to move to Lenox who are able to buy what's on the market and in the existing inventory, but also those who are of low to moderate income or maybe that middle market, and really thinking about, is there home ownership opportunities that are for everybody? And do all kinds of people and households of various incomes, do they have the opportunity to buy a home, to build equity, to kind of move up the housing ladder in Lenox? So any questions or comments on this topic? Okay, so we'll move right along, and just some of the actions that will come out of these goals include revising local zoning to be more friendly to kind of the traditional density you already see outside of the village center or in Lennoxdale, and kind of thinking about, well, houses can be like, houses don't have to all be 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. Can they be smaller? What's more important to the town, density or kind of the design of a new house or a multifamily building? And so on this chapter, historical and cultural resources, the steering committee opted to blend the two, really kind of thinking history and culture in Lenox are so intertwined that it made sense to combine them. And the vision states, Lenox will continue to preserve and promote its historical and cultural resources, which enrich the quality of life for residents and visitors. So the priority topics are increased collaboration, integrating with other amenities, and making sure we're balancing historic preservation with economic development. And so it's really thinking about how we get all of these different constituents, kind of the historic preservation advocates, property owners who own historic homes and historic sites. How can we get them to collaborate and work together and work with the town to protect those resources? Kind of making sure if you're really into Kennedy Park or you're really into October Mountain State Forest, you're able to also get to Shakespeare and Company or the Mount or Tanglewood while you're in Lenox, and kind of easily. And so priority goals, using municipal tools and resources to ensure the continued success of the town's historical and cultural economy. So thinking about, the demo delay bylaw, inventorying our historic properties, adopting a local cultural district. Those are things we've already done, but doing activities similar to that. And making sure we're always integrating kind of history and culture with other amenities, promoting the adaptive reuse of historic buildings and properties in support of the town's historical and cultural economy, and really marketing and highlighting Lenox as a destination for cultural workers. We're kind of like, Lenox is a hotspot for culture, and kind of there's a lot of creatives who live and work in Lenox, and really making it known that Lenox welcomes that kind of business and work, and there are opportunities here for that. Another required chapter in a master plan is services and facilities. So it looks at what services and facilities does a town offer, and kind of what needs to be improved, what's missing, what's really good. So the vision here is that the town of Lenox will provide and improve quality and accessible services for residents of all ages, with a focus on fair and equitable access to education, ample opportunities for community and social engagement that are accessible to residents of all ages, and well-maintained town-owned properties that are accessible and operated to be fiscally and environmentally sustainable. So number one topic, maintain and improve the quality of services in Lenox. Number two, making sure they're environmentally sustainable. And three, having a robust capital improvement process and plan in place for the long term. As part of this chapter, consultants and staff met with all of the department heads and really kind of talked about their short-term and long-term facility needs. And so one finding of this chapter was that it could really help the town to kind of have a facilities director and a facilities plan. So Lenox owns so many old buildings and facilities. And so it's really trying to be more proactive about which need kind of substantial capital improvements, which might need replacement in the short term and long term, and then how it can be done in a way that's cutting edge and good for people and in the environment and the local budget. And so the number one goal, Lenox is very proud of its school system and provides students with a really excellent education. And the number one goal for services and facilities is to maintain that and keep promoting that. In goal two, ensure that the long-term planning initiatives account for the maintenance, operation, and eventual replacement of current facilities. For instance, we know we'll need to replace our wastewater treatment plant at some point. And that will be a big expense, but it's also an opportunity for the town to kind of put its green and sustainability values into practice. And of course, incorporating sustainability and climate change adaptation into our planning and maintenance of all of these facilities and spaces. So that's really looking at where these are going and making sure they're not in a floodplain and making sure they're not vulnerable to natural hazards that will be enhanced by climate change over time, and making sure when we're able to, that the new equipment or new infrastructure does not kind of exacerbate climate change more, that it's not as impactful as conventional or more old-fashioned equipment and facilities. Any questions or comments here? Okay, I'll move right along. So transportation, the town of Lenox will have a transportation and circulation network that meets the needs of its residents and visitors. Lenox has worked really hard for a long time to make sure that it's a safe place for people to walk and bike kind of all over the community, but especially in and around the downtown. So in terms of thinking about what do we have for transportation now, what does the town want in the future, we really looked at walkability, connectivity, safety and maintenance, and access to transit. So walkability, it's really making sure where possible when we're repaving roads or improving them, that we're also putting in sidewalk or replacing sidewalk. And when we're working with developers for redevelopment or new development, we try to work with them to replace sidewalk or connectivity gaps, and thinking about how we connect people to places without their cars when possible. And in terms of safety and maintenance, it's really keeping our eye on areas where we know where there have been higher frequency of crashes or accidents, trying to improve those and thinking about how it can just be a safer transportation system for all users, including drivers. And in terms of access to transit, Lenox is serviced by the regional bus system. It doesn't go everywhere in town, but it exists. And a big finding in here was that there's strong support for promoting stronger train access to the Berkshires from our urban centers, especially New York City and Boston. So we want to keep promoting our transportation system and making sure that it expands mobility for all, and it's increasing access to both job opportunities for residents, really no matter what kind of work you do. It would be great if you could not need your own car to get there, and leisure opportunities. Another kind of opportunity that has been identified through the plan is that it would be, Lenox is a great place for some kind of shared shuttle service that could get people from the different cultural attractions, but also to our open space attractions. So you could kind of get to Lenox, park your car, and still get around the community without needing to drive everywhere. And then continue to provide adequate transportation for seniors and the physically disabled, promoting that local public transit and making sure it's accessible. And if we are able as a region to support stronger train access, making sure the town and local community is supportive of like that last mile of connectivity. Like if there's expanded train service or better bus service to and from New York and Pittsfield, or Boston and Pittsfield, making sure it's really easy for people to like get off the bus in Lenox too, or get down from the intermodal station in Pittsfield to Lenox really easily, and not necessarily needing a ride with someone you know. But there's a way for you to get from kind of the main transportation hub to Lenox and its different attractions. And Lenox has really high quality roads and streets, and it really prides itself on that. One thing I didn't mention in the economic development chapter is through the local meals and lodging revenue the town receives each year. It gets about $2 million of extra revenue that like other communities don't see. And so that kind of revenue goes a long way in helping the town be proactive in maintaining the roads and the streets and sidewalks and water and sewer. And we want to keep doing that to make sure there are no potholes in Lenox. And then, so thinking about, oh yeah, did anyone have questions or comments about transportation in Lenox? Okay, so thinking about implementation, how will we get the master plan done, or how will we accomplish it over time? So really, that's why we're having these public meetings and this public process. We want to hear from you. What are your priorities? So we know which bite of the elephant to take first, and then kind of applying a timeline to everything. Is it a short-term, mid-term, long-term action? Is it a municipal action? If so, what kind of action is it? Is it a regulatory action? Can you change the zoning or adopt a different bylaw or a policy that will help implement the action or the goal? Is it something you want to incorporate into local capital planning right away? Or is it something that you'll integrate more into the long-term future? And then if it's not just a municipal action, who is the town partnering with, or who else is doing this locally or in the region who can really help make it happen in Lenox? And I think, do we have any questions or comments on the implementation section?
No.
I think Elliot, your hand is raised. All right, we will move on. So there will be 4 more meetings of the master planning process. So the next one is this Saturday, and it will be really similar to this one, just an overview of the plan and the process. And that's in case people couldn't make it this evening because of their work schedules. And then the next one will be February 8th, and this will be a breakout session. So we'll talk more in depth about land use, economic development, and open space and recreation. And I think with this one, we'll really think about in terms of land use. What are key areas by neighborhood that people want to see protected for open space and recreation? And where are places in your neighborhood that you would be comfortable seeing new housing, new residential development or redevelopment? And where in the community would you support or be excited about seeing new commercial land use, whether it's redevelopment of a former mill building or like a new building on Route 7 or 20, thinking about where and how you want it to look, how you want it to be regulated and controlled. And in economic development, it's thinking about, okay, if Lenox has such strong hospitality and leisure sectors, what else? Like, what other types of jobs or businesses do people want to see encouraged or welcomed into the community? And what kind of infrastructure can be provided or supported to welcome that into the community? And think, what are other barriers to kind of a successful year-round sustainable economy that makes kind of the young people in the community able and willing to come back, and people who do come here, what makes them able to stay and make it their community? And in terms of open space and recreation, we'll kind of be thinking and talking about, okay, so here are our different open spaces. Here's the recreational opportunity. Like, what's missing? What can the town do to help kind of the non-municipal entities further their goals? And what can the town do to make its own properties safe and accessible and enjoyable to all users? Then in March, we'll look at historical and cultural resources, transportation, services and facilities, and housing. And March 15th, we'll focus on implementation. Implementation, that's where we'll be looking for your priorities and kind of diving more into the specific actions that are identified in the plan. And on March 1st, which looks like a big one, but there'll be breakout sessions. So you won't have to, you can kind of pick your preferred topic and really dive into something that interests you. So with historical and cultural resources, we'll look at kind of what are the priority neighborhoods and features that people want to, what are people really excited about in terms of history in Lenox? What sites and features really need protection or preservation? How do we promote kind of adaptive reuse that's sensitive and encourages economic development? And in terms of cultural resources, really working with the different cultural entities in Lenox to help promote them and let them be flexible and make sure that everyone who lives here or comes here knows about all of the wonderful opportunities in both the history and culture of the community. Transportation, kind of looking at, we have a complete streets plan, so just asking people what did we miss? What are your short-term priorities? If we missed something, we want to make sure it's in the plan, and also thinking about non-vehicular transportation and how we can better connect to a regional shared use path system. And for services and facilities, just talking about which people really value, what priorities are, making sure you agree with the content of the plan. And for housing, kind of the same thing, talking more about what the specific housing needs and opportunities are in Lenox, and talking about where, how can we help existing housing stock maintain our inventory, and also increase the inventory of housing stock for people of all incomes. And are there any questions or comments?
Yes, I had an observation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I see all of this stuff we're doing as being open-ended, because ultimately it comes down to how much are we willing to pay for different things. Take affordable care, affordable housing. Really, there's no easy way around it, but if you're going to do affordable housing, you're going to have to subsidize housing somehow. And we don't really get into that. No, I understand that there's an argument that we don't really have to do any great details. We just have to write this master plan because it's an easy way to raise money. Well, okay, I accept that. But as an economic policy person, I say, okay, who's going to pay for this? Who's going to pay for this? Who isn't going to pay? And we don't get into that. We just have sort of these wish lists.
So actually we do get into, and some of the actions can get very specific and spell out how it will be funded and where the town can look for funding kind of outside of the municipality. Also how you can augment or create new funding mechanisms with your available financial resources. So
where does this come in?
And then in implementation, we're still working on that chapter, but that's also where we'll identify potential funding and financing mechanisms for the objectives and actions. Yeah, because it's actually, you can have a master plan, but it doesn't guarantee that you will raise the money you need to make it.
I understand.
Yeah, but there's so many creative ways to make, I think, all of the goals and actions in this plan happen. And it will be a combination of federal funds, state funding, local funding, grant funds. But it's also important, you don't want to tie yourself to one solution. So kind of the implementation chapter will offer suggestions and ideas, and then it's up to the town to pursue them. Okay, anything else?
Hi, Gwen. This is Mary Beth Mitz. I
Hello.
just want to express my sincere thanks for you guiding us through this whole process and, honchoing these really important public Zoom meetings that we're going to be having over the next month. I want to thank everyone who's on the steering committee for 2 years of significant effort in bringing their concerns for each one of the 4 assessment teams, bringing your concerns, bringing your knowledge, bringing your expertise to bear on the plan that we've put together. And it's really important that we all try to get our friends and neighbors interested in attending the rest of these sessions. Even if they just want to attend one session, if they just have an opinion about open space and recreation or transportation, if you can just reach out and tap those friends on the shoulder and say, hey, could you spend a couple of hours of your time just helping us tease out the priorities that we have for the town of Lenox going forward for the next 20 years. Everyone's voice is really important in this process. And it really should be, fun and engaging because, Lenox wants to serve every resident in the town. And it's important that as many people as possible get involved in this process. But great thanks go to Gwen Miller as our stalwart staff champion, and a lot of thanks to Berkshire Regional Planning Commission, who've helped us with the drafting of this and kept us on task. To Tom Matusko and Phil Arnold, you guys have really done some great work for us, so thank you.
May I just add something? I just want to ask a question. It's Olga. Did we advertise this widely? Have we given it any public, looking for public input?
Olga, I've just posted about 4 Instagram posts tonight, taking some screenshots of the presentation. I'm going to do some more posting tomorrow on Instagram to try to rally a little bit of interest. I know that these meetings have been posted at Town Hall. They've been posted on our website. I've announced them at the last 3 select board hearings. So, you know.
Mary Beth, could we ask for some mention in the newspaper?
Yeah, there was an article this past Monday. Not this
But
Monday.
Clarence did or what?
Yes, Clarence did a very large article.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
I can't remember the date, but it was, I think it was last Monday.
Oh, okay. Because I think the chances of are, you know, not everybody's on Instagram, et cetera. So I'm just wondering how you get, you know.
Yeah, and I'd really encourage the steering committee members, whoever you have, you know, who you speak to frequently, your own boards and committees, your friends and family who live or work in Lenox, really encouraging them to participate too.
Okay, smart idea.
I don't know if I'm muted or not. This is Kate.
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, okay. Is it possible to get it on the banner on the homepage of the website so that everybody who
Yeah.
goes to the town website kind of sees that?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, but there was a terrific article the other day, so we'll have to make sure you see that, Olga.
Yeah, but somebody please alert me as to the day so I can read it.
Yeah, we can send out the link too.
Okay.
Yeah,
There is a school committee meeting at the same time tonight, so that, you know, may be part of.
that's certainly a conflict. Yeah, and I think
Lots of
really
things
these
going on.
first 2 meetings are more of an overview, and we really hope for people to come and participate in these smaller breakout sessions to get more into the meat of the
Yeah.
master plan.
I think that would be good.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah. Oh, and also this will be recorded. All of the meetings are going to be recorded, and CTSB has offered to post them on their website.
Great.
That's great.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention as well, there will be we're taking comments on the plan now, and after these public meetings, we'll take back comments and revise the plan accordingly, and then that final draft will be available on the town website for a period of about 2 weeks or so for final comments and input from the community.
Gwen,
Yes, Rob.
one question I have, it seems quite a challenge for just one person like yourself to present. Not that you don't know it, but it doesn't make sense to have, you know, the teams that someone from the team for each area present their area just to get more engagement in the meeting. I think it may help other people be willing to ask questions.
Yeah, that's the intent of the upcoming the topical meetings, is that the self-elected person from the steering committee or the core assessment team will help lead the presentation. And then I'll be there, and then staff from BRPC, who are kind of topic area experts, will also be there to help kind of facilitate.
have a question about the shared use path. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, I know that town meeting sent it some money maybe a couple of years ago, but
The Community Preservation Committee funded a feasibility study, and Alta Design, who specialize on shared use path and bike planning, they worked with a little steering committee in Lenox, and we have the plan, and it was all set for kind of a fun public kickoff and information sharing. And then the COVID pandemic started. So it hasn't been broadly shared, but it is a public document, and that will be a big part of the open space and rec topic meeting.
Good.
And I will say, really, the recommendation from that feasibility study is to have a shared use path in the eastern corridor of Lenox, kind of along the river, where we could meet up with the Lee bike path and the Pittsfield bike path eventually. And it has some pretty cool ideas about how we can navigate kind of the natural constraints and also create some shared, like, maybe it doesn't always make sense to have a dedicated shared use path, but are there like advisory shoulders or other tools we can use on existing roads and streets that will offer kind of a safe space for bikers and walkers?
Great.
That
Yeah.
sounds good. Yes. Yeah, it's very exciting.
I also wonder, Gwen, if there's an opportunity vis-a-vis transportation. You know, I've talked about a kind of smaller version of the emerald necklace around town on a crushed stone path through the woods connecting the cultural institutions that keeps the foot traffic off of the main thoroughfares. But I wonder if there might be an opportunity to explore something like bluebikes.com, which is those bikes with kiosks.
Yes.
You know, I know in Boston now they have
Yeah,
700
and
kiosks.
I will say, Alan, so through the city of Pittsfield, the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission and the city of Pittsfield are working with Alta Design and Planning to look at the feasibility of a bike share system.
Great.
Yeah, and so there's a bunch of other municipalities who are involved, including Lenox, and kind of the takeaway from that will be what would the shared bike system and model look like, and then where, like, how, you know, would it be a regional network? Would kind of municipalities have their own hubs? If so, how many? Because I think certainly in Lenox specifically, we could host more than one station.
Oh, yeah.
And that's part of kind of that last mile connectivity too. Yeah. So steering committee members, if you want to volunteer to help present and talk about your favorite topics in our upcoming meetings, that would be very welcome and fabulous.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
I would do my part.
Thank you, Olga. Okay.
Alan will volunteer. Oh, wait.
Yeah, sure.
There's still time to decide too if people are feeling shy. Yeah.
I would do economic development, but I think Pam had a lot of passion about doing it.
Okay. Yeah, no, Pam couldn't make it tonight, but she's hoping to make all of our future meeting dates. So I'll check in with her and make sure she's comfortable with that.
And Gwen, just so you know, Alan and I have a board meeting this coming Saturday at the exact same time, so we won't be here Saturday.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be there either, Gwen, but I'll be at the other meetings.
Great. Thank you, Olga.
As long as we will drive the participation towards Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't be there, that's fine. It will be very similar to tonight's, though I have some, ideas how to make it a little more exciting after going through it for real. I would say that if you can just help let people know that it is happening and that they can log on via Zoom on Saturday, that would be a big help.
Gwen, do we still have people who are listening in? How many?
One.
We had 2.
Yeah, we had 2.
Oh, okay.
Lucy Kennedy and Jay Whistler.
Yeah, there was another one at the beginning.
Oh.
It was, Ken Kelly was also here at the beginning.
Oh,
that's great.
Are any of them still there? Do they have any suggestions for us?
Yes, Jay Kissler is still on the line.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay. If you have any ideas, I think he attending.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Jay Kissler, and my wife, Chris Conklin, and I participated in the meeting and was very helpful. We actually are in California and are we're relocating to Lenox this summer.
Cool.
We own a house there, so this was really more background for us to kind of understand where the town wants to go. So I would say it's a good process. I'm interested in following along with some of the other meetings. I don't have any other suggestions at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Jay, as a former California, I've been here 4 years. It's been a good move. I don't have as much traffic. Life is good here. The snow is a little deeper, but a great place.
Years.
So welcome.
Yes,
Thank
welcome
you.
to
We're
Lenox.
looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Any
welcome, welcome,
any
Jay.
kids coming from your household?
Pardon?
Any kids coming from your household?
We have grown kids who will visit. This is actually a return for my wife. Chris was born and raised in Lenox.
I grew up in Lenox and my dad was Cap Conklin.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Legendary.
Yes.
So, yeah. So it is a return for me. Yeah, very exciting.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's different than when I left, obviously, and in many good ways. And I'm looking forward to engaging when we get there.
That's great.
That'd be wonderful.
Thank you.
Just don't
And
forget.
thank you all for all your time.
Thank you. All right, folks. It's a little bit before 8:30. So is there anything else to cover before we disband?
Job.
Yep. Yeah, I think you went through everything.
All right, great. Well, thank you for all of your time so far and tonight. You're all awesome. And I'll talk to you soon.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen. Thanks for putting this together. Bye.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Care.
Take care.
Enjoy the
Bye.
snow.
Welcome to the Kiss.
Yeah, enjoy the real winter weather and all of the awesome snow we're getting.
Awesome is right.
Yeah.